I never meant to stay on the air that late. Not that anyone told me not to. I doubt anyone cared. KXVO 96.3 FM was like a forgotten cassette tape left playing on an empty deck, its sound humming out into the night with no one listening. We were just a handful of voices broadcasting out of a rundown station on the outskirts of Fallon, Nevada. My shift was supposed to run 8 p.m. to midnight 5 nights a week. Smooth jazz, public service announcements, the occasional weather report, or half-hearted birthday dedication. That was the rhythm of my nights, and I had grown to like the quiet of it. The truth is, I didn't have much of a life outside of the booth. I'd been a musician once, a decent one even, toured a bit. Played bass in a blues band that never quite made it but had some good years before the other guys moved on and I didn't. Now it was just me, the studio, and a string of long, lonesome evenings that blurred together like a smeared track on an old tape. The room smelled like dust and fried circuits. The carpet under the console was worn to the concrete. The window to the sound booth rattled every time a truck passed on the highway outside. And still, I liked it here. The station had character, a kind of stubborn dignity in its decay. That night started like any other. It was Thursday, or maybe Friday. I'd stopped keeping track, and the station was mostly empty. I brought in a thermos of gas station coffee, a bag of unsalted peanuts, and my usual stack of CD reissues. Coltrane, Miles, Nina, Ella, a little Oscar Peterson for the real late hours. The music was already spinning when I sat down, headphones still warm from the DJ before me. I didn't know it yet, but something had changed. Management had quietly installed a signal booster, an experimental unit meant to test how far our reach could go if we hit the right atmospheric window. No one told me. I didn't ask. I just sat there and let the music play. Then the phone rang. That wasn't so strange on its own. Every now and then we got a call from a drunk, or a trucker passing through, or some old-timer who still kept a radio in the garage. What was strange was the line blinking red without the open line segment being live. KXVO, I said, slipping into my practiced radio voice. You're on the air. Static. And then, is this the music station? I blinked. The voice was shaky. Old, faint. You've got KXVO, I said. Smooth jazz out of Fallon, Nevada. A long pause. I could hear wind on the other end, or maybe just the line breathing. Would you play something for my wife? Her name's Irene. She liked Ella Fitzgerald. A smile tugged at my lips. Sweet request. Of course. Any song in mind? Anything. I've got Summertime queued up next, I said. He sighed. It sounded like the kind of sound someone makes when they're sitting down after a long walk. That'd be nice. I was about to thank him when he added something strange. I'm trying to get home, but the road's not there anymore. I tilted forward in my chair. Where are you calling from? A soft shuffle. There used to be a Texaco on the corner. That's where I used to call from, but it's a flower shop now. The street curves where it didn't before. Trees too tall, houses wrong. I didn't know what to say. Everything's moved, he whispered. Or maybe I have. The line went dead. I stared at the blinking light for a full minute after the call dropped. Then, without thinking, I stood up, walked to the filing cabinet, and pulled out the dusty yellowed phone logs. No ID came through, of course, just a pulse line. Anonymous, that was normal. But something about that call stuck with me. The music resumed. Summertime drifted through the air, dreamy and slow. I leaned back and tried to shake it off. But I couldn't stop picturing the man, standing at a flower shop that used to be a gas station, wondering where the road had gone. I told myself not to think about it. After the show, I drove home with the windows cracked and the radio off. Ironic, I know. The air had that desert cold to it, the kind that settles deep in your bones no matter how warm the afternoon was. I passed the same half-lit diner, the same blinking yellow traffic light that had been broken for 3 years, the same billboard sun-bleached to ghosts. Fallon didn't change. That was one of its few charms. And yet, when I got home, I went straight to my laptop and typed, Texaco Fallon Irene Harold, nothing useful. I added Elko on a whim. The man said he was trying to get home. Maybe that was where home had been. A few entries down, I froze. Obituary, Harold L. Griggs, 71, of Elko, Nevada, passed away March 18, 1979. Survived by wife, Irene Griggs. I reread it a dozen times, cross-checked with the Nevada Death Registry, looked for any living relatives. I couldn't find any, just a single yellowed newspaper clipping uploaded by a digital archiving group. I stared at his name until it blurred. Then I closed the laptop, poured a whiskey, and left the TV on while I tried to fall asleep. But I kept thinking about that sigh, the kind you make when your bones hurt and the world doesn't feel like it fits anymore. 2 nights later, the phone rang again. Same time, just before 1 a.m. Same voice. Hello? He sounded uncertain, like he wasn't sure the line had gone through. This is KXVO, I said slowly. Still here, he said. Still trying. I swallowed. Harold? A pause. You remember? I do, I said. I looked you up. He didn't say anything at first. Then, that was it. Not surprise, not fear. Just like a man reading the last line of a book he already knew the ending to. I'm not angry, he said softly. I think I already knew. Somewhere deep down. Then why are you calling? Because I'm not anywhere, he said. There's no road, no sky, just houses that aren't mine, streets I don't remember, people that won't look at me. Or maybe they don't see me at all. His voice dropped to a whisper. I think I'm stuck. The next morning, I didn't go home. I sat in the booth long after sunrise, watching the dust swirl in the amber light through the cracked window. The daytime DJ, Mike, came in and gave me a weird look. You're still here? Yeah, trouble sleeping. He nodded like that explained everything and went to warm up his coffee. He didn't ask more. People stopped asking me anything after a while. The third time Harold called, I was ready. I had maps open, weather records, even a note app where I was keeping everything organized. I wasn't sure what I was trying to do, solve something maybe, prove I wasn't losing it. It was past 2 a.m. when he came through. Harold, I was hoping to hear from you. It's hard to find a signal, he said, like the wires are stretched too thin. Sometimes I think I'm holding on by just a thread. You mentioned the Texaco, I said. It closed in the 80s, got turned into that flower shop. I remember that Texaco, he said. I worked there after the war. Irene would bring me lunch in a brown paper bag, ham sandwich and half a peach. I didn't speak. He chuckled. She always cut the crusts off. Said I had the teeth of a boy. Harold, I asked, do you remember what happened to you? He hesitated. I remember a sound, he said, loud, a snap, then everything was quiet. That was 1979, I said. You had a heart attack, in your sleep. A beat of silence. I always wondered, he said, almost to himself. I thought maybe I wandered off, got lost. I never saw anyone after that. No tunnel, no lights. What do you see now? Shadows, he said. Everything's flat, like someone turned the world inside out. I see places I recognize, but they're wrong. Like looking at a photograph of a memory someone else took. His voice trembled. I don't think I'm alone here. That was the first time he said it. I don't think I'm alone. I didn't understand what he meant yet. The calls started picking up after that, one every couple of nights at first, then 2, then 5, different voices, all lost. There was a man named Wallace who called to ask about the Russians. Said he was worried the president might go too far. When I asked who he meant, he said Kennedy. When I told him the year, he broke down sobbing and whispered, "Oh God, did we win?" Another caller, Janice, asked me to check on her children, Michael and Tony. They should be about your age now, she said. We lived on Haskell Road, White House, green door. You can't miss it. When I looked up her address, the house had burned down in 1972. Each voice was unique, but they all shared one thing. They didn't seem to know they were dead. Or they suspected it, but couldn't admit it. They wandered through some blank liminal echo of our world, picking up faint broadcasts and following them like breadcrumbs. They weren't haunting me, they were trying to come home. One night during a power outage, the generator kicked in and everything went quiet except for the faint hum of the backup signal. No music, no light. And then the phone blinked. I picked it up. Before I could speak, a voice said, "You're the only one who hears us now." Then a dozen more voices layered behind it. Some crying, some calling names, some just whispering over and over. "Tell me if I ever made it home." I started sleeping at the station full time after that night. I brought in a cot, a duffel bag with extra clothes, toothbrush, aspirin, a thermos that I stopped washing after the third week. The coffee never stayed hot, but I didn't care. I stopped going home, mostly because I didn't want to, but also because I started to feel like I might miss something, some critical piece of whatever this was. The dead didn't call on a schedule. They called when they could, when the signal bled through far enough, when they found the thread. I couldn't risk missing them. My logs grew from scattered pages to full binders. Name, date, time, voice characteristics, anything I could gather. Sometimes I sketched what I imagined they looked like based on the way they talked. Sometimes I played the calls back from the recording archive and just listened for hours, over and over, dissecting every sound. Most of the staff thought I'd cracked. I don't blame them. I looked the part, unshaven, hollow-eyed, mumbling to myself about names no one remembered and places that didn't exist anymore. But I wasn't imagining it. Because then, the girl from Cleveland called. It was about 3:40 a.m. The station had gone eerily quiet. No wind outside, no creaks from the pipes. The world felt paused. Even the hum of the power supply sounded wrong, like it was being swallowed by something bigger than silence. Then the light blinked red. "Go ahead," I said. "You're on KXVO." The voice was small, young, maybe 7 or 8. "Hi, is this the talking place?" My throat tightened. "You're on the radio," I said. "Can you tell me your name?" "I don't know," she said. "Everyone just called me Button. Do you know where you are, Button?" "I was in my house," she said. "But it's not there now. The walls are paper. The floor is soft. I can hear people walking, but I can't see them." "What do you see?" "Fog and shadows. And sometimes I see a shape standing really still. I think it's looking at me, but it doesn't move." I turned the volume down on the main feed. Just the two of us now. "Do you remember anything else? A city maybe? A street name?" "I used to live in Cleveland. I had a pink bike and a puppy named Radar. My brother pushed me down the stairs once. It was funny." She laughed. It sent a chill through me. "When was that?" "Mom said Kennedy died on the TV that morning. She was crying." I swallowed hard. "That was 1963, I said softly. She was quiet for a moment. "Oh, I thought it was sooner. Button, how did you find us?" "I followed the music," she said. "It came through the fog. I heard it even when I was sleeping. It made me feel warm." I felt tears sting my eyes. "Will you keep playing it?" she asked. "Even if I forget how to find you?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "I promise." The line cut. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the booth, staring at the board, letting dead air drift until sunrise. Not a single call came through after Button. I think they were listening too. I stopped leaving the station at all, not even for groceries. Mike, the daytime guy, started dropping off snacks for me, even though he avoided eye contact. I think part of him thought I'd gone mad, and part of him was afraid I hadn't. The calls kept coming, more than ever. A man named Carl who said he was waiting for his son to come back from the war, but couldn't remember which war. A teenager named Denise who swore she was still inside a burning building. She kept asking if the fire trucks were coming. I didn't know what to tell her. A woman named Josephine who said she'd been walking a hospital hallway for days and couldn't open any of the doors. "There's no handles," she said, "just blank wood, like they're fake." I asked how she knew I was there. She said, "I heard your voice through the vents." The voices began overlapping. Sometimes I'd get 2 or 3 calls in the same minute. Their signals tangling, overlapping, cutting in and out like tangled wires in a drowned phone line. I recorded them all, played them back in slow motion, caught fragments that didn't play live. One time under Harold's last call, I found a second voice whispering, "Don't listen to him." He's leading them in circles. Another time I caught a gasp, sharp, ragged, followed by something that sounded like claws tapping on glass. They weren't all like Button. Not all of them wanted to come home. Some wanted to stay lost. Then came the voice with no breath, the one that vibrated through the mic. I remember it vividly. The studio got cold, like true cold, winter cold, deep space cold. The coffee in my thermos steamed against the air like it was being dropped into dry ice. The light blinked. No ring, just blinking. I picked it up. The sound wasn't a voice, not in the traditional sense. It was a frequency, like something speaking through the carrier wave. "Stop," it said. My chest hurt when I heard it, like the word was physically vibrating my ribs. "Stop broadcasting." I gripped the board, knuckles white. "Why?" Silence. Then, "The line I snot for you." Static swallowed the voice, and the lights in the studio, every bulb, flickered to near dark, then returned. I unplugged the phones after that, just for one night. I told myself I needed a break, that I was doing the responsible thing, that I was still sane enough to know when to stop. I sat there in the dark with no calls coming through, and I felt cold, empty. I don't remember falling asleep, but I remember what I dreamed. I was in the hallway Josephine described. Endless doors, no handles, no lights, just that dim institutional blue from somewhere above. I could hear crying, footsteps, a phone ringing from behind the walls. I tried to call out, but I didn't have a mouth. I woke up gasping, plugged the phone line back in. The light blinked immediately. I answered. The voice said, "You came back, thank you." After I reconnected the line, I never unplugged it again. I kept the red light always visible from where I sat. It didn't matter if I was sleeping, eating, scribbling names into the margins of my logs. It had become a beacon, like a lighthouse in the fog, and I knew if I ever stopped watching it, even for a second, it might blink and I'd miss someone. That thought haunted me more than anything, because the calls were changing again. They weren't just questions or desperate half-memories anymore. They were warnings. One night, a woman whispered that she'd been walking between buildings for so long that the sky no longer moved. "I hear the music," she said. "It's the only thing still alive here, but something else hears it too." She asked if I could turn it down. "It's getting louder over here," she whispered. "It's drawing them toward me. Them." I wanted to ask who she meant, but the line cut out. Another call came from a man who said he'd been driving for months. No gas stations, no signs, no landmarks, just the same stretch of two-lane highway repeating forever. He said the only thing that changed was the music on the radio. "I heard your voice," he said, "but when I turned it up, the sky cracked." I didn't know what that meant. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "I saw something watching me from the ditch." "Did it move?" I asked. "No," he said. "That's what scared me." He hung up. I kept the recordings, played them back on nights with no calls, isolated background noise, filtered audio frequencies. I heard things I didn't want to hear, clicks, scrapes, and a sound like breathing pressed against glass. I stopped using the restroom at night. I kept all the lights on. I taped blackout curtains over the windows because one night I caught my reflection blinking after I did. I stopped being able to tell whether I was awake. Dreams and calls bled into each other. I dreamed of faces in the static. I dreamed of a train running on a track made of bones, every window full of people staring outward, unblinking. I dreamed of Button, standing at the edge of a forest made of radio towers, holding a stuffed rabbit and asking, "Will the music stop when you die?" I woke screaming, tangled in the cables under the board. The light was blinking. The call came from a payphone. I know that's impossible, but I heard it. The ambient ring of a street corner, muffled wind, the flat plastic click of a receiver. The voice said, "I've been waiting for your show to come back on. You've reached it," I said. "Oh, thank God. It's been years. Who is this?" "I don't know anymore. I lost my name. I think it's in a drawer somewhere." He laughed like it hurt. I tried to call my wife, but she doesn't live here anymore. I knocked and a stranger answered. "When was the last time you spoke to her?" The war had just ended. Which war? He paused. I don't think the one you mean. Then very quietly he said, they're learning how to talk. That rattled me. Who? The ones outside the signal, the ones in the static. They're mimicking us. My mouth was dry. You think they're listening? I don't think they're the dead, he whispered. I think they're what's left after the dead. I stopped broadcasting music between 2 and 4 a.m. I let the airwaves fall into silence. No piano, no sax, just the quiet hum of the board and the breath between stations. I don't know if it helped. But fewer calls came during that time. The ones that did were softer, slower, almost like dreams bleeding through the dial. During one of those silences, I got a call that sounded like a dial tone mixed with the sound of a baby crying underwater. It lasted 5 full minutes. Then a voice, deep, wrong, said, he's not here anymore. You're speaking to what's underneath. The studio door opened by itself that night. I didn't move. I just listened to the silence. Somewhere in the madness, I started hearing the phrase more often, spoken clearly by different voices, repeated in different tones. A thread running through the fog. Can you tell me if I ever made it home? It started to feel less like a question and more like a ritual, like the final thing they all had to say before the call could end. Like those exact words were required to close the loop. I began answering it. Yes, I'd say. Yes, you made it. And sometimes, just sometimes, the voice on the line would say, oh, that's good, and fade out. The last week I broadcasted, I didn't leave the booth once. I'd lost track of time, weight, hygiene, everything. I was living on dry cereal, black coffee, and fear. I saw things out the corner of my eye that I refused to acknowledge. A figure standing in the parking lot at dawn. A pale face watching through the control room window, upside down. I never opened the door. The calls kept coming, but now they were fractured. One man kept repeating the phrase, I buried the wrong body. I buried the wrong body. A child begged me to turn down the moon. It's screaming. A girl asked, what happens when there's no one left to answer? And through it all, beneath every call, was a sound like wind. Only it wasn't moving air, it was breathing. The final call came in the morning. It wasn't late. The sun had just come up, and the golden light was beginning to edge through the taped-over windows. I remember that clearly. I remember how safe it felt for just 1 second, like I could step out and finally breathe clean air. Then the light blinked. I picked it up. Hello, I said, barely above a whisper. The voice was male, calm, middle-aged, familiar. I used to listen to you every night, he said. You helped me sleep. My eyes blurred with sudden tears. Thank you, I said. That means more than you know. He was quiet. Then he asked, can you tell me if I ever made it home? My voice cracked. I whispered, yes. Silence. Then he said something no one had said before. Can you? I froze. What? Can you? He repeated. Can you tell if you've made it home? The line went dead. I stared at the phone for a long time. Then I stood, walked to the window, and peeled back the tape. Outside, the parking lot was empty, but the light was wrong, too still, too clean. The shadows didn't move. The sun wasn't rising. It was just glowing like a bulb in a painting, like someone had drawn it and forgotten to animate it. I sat back down at the console. The red light blinked again. I still broadcast, every night. I don't know if it reaches the living anymore. I'm not sure I'd know how to tell. But the dead are still calling. The lost, the drifters, the echoes. And I still answer. Because someone has to. Because someone might be waiting to hear, yes, you made it home.